Hi, you guys. Those of you who have been here all day, thank you so much for hanging in till the very end because every one of these presentations is so good and so insightful and inspiring in a different way. We're about to see a presentation by Mark Indig, who is our series winner, our big winner of the competition of our street photography around the world competition. And so he's going to talk to you about his whole background and where he's come from to create this work. But I just want to say a few things about him. Um, I love this quote. Maybe I got this off your website or off something that was written about you. I don't know for sure, but it's a great quote. It says, this is by a quote by Mark. He says, I could pass 1,000 silos or storefronts, but the one that speaks to me, the one that makes me stop and take a picture, is the one that surprises me and makes me wonder what I'm seeing. So I think that's a really neat thing. Now, Mark's background, I've known Mark. We met a long time ago. He can tell you the story. He came to a portfolio review. He's probably the nicest guy that I've ever met in 22 years to say thank you to me more than anybody ever has. Thank you for that, Mark. I so appreciate it. I don't deserve it, but he still has done it all these years. But he loved that day that he came on to portfolio review because you know what? He found a community, and the community has gotten even bigger and neater and cooler and full of like amazing people. Um, so, uh, so that's how Mark's known us all these years. But he became a photographer way before he knew us. He was born in New York City. He lives in Los Angeles. He's spent 42 years. I knew that you spent a lot of years. I didn't know 42 years in the motion picture industry, most recently as a studio executive, producer, and unit production managers for companies such as Disney, Miramax, Universal, and DreamWorks. He's worked on so many of the biggest films that you all love. But it was his past 15 years that he's worked as a location scout, and that's what's brought his love of photography and a unique perspective on the landscape, the social landscape, the urban landscape, the landscape. So he's been, looking for great locations for years and seeing, and he has to come back with not just like a snapshot of a great location, but a great picture of a great location. So I think that his work as a location manager and scout or whatever you call it, whatever the proper words are, has made him a great photographer. So let's take a look at Mark's work. I'm just so pleased, Mark, that you won this prize and that you're with us today. I'm very, very pleased about it.
Well,
So
no,
welcome.
thank you very much, Julia. Nobody was more shocked than me, but I just want to thank you for your presence and your studio were a very important stop on my journey. I started coming to your free open portfolio night something like 20 years ago in Venice, and it enabled me to show my work, to get feedback, to learn to talk about my work, to refine it. And it wasn't just one time. I kept coming back and coming back and coming back, and I've been a member now for at least 20 of the 22 years you've been around. And we've both had parallel journeys towards success. I've I've certainly grown as a photographer, and your influence on the photography of Los Angeles is incalculable. So thank you very, very much. I said it again. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. So this is me, and that's my website and my email. I am not on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on any of those things because I'm too lazy. And that image below is a tattoo when I reached several years ago when I reached traveling, shooting, working in all 50 states and over 50 countries. And you can read along with my short statement here. The accepted definition of street photography can fit almost any non-commercial photograph taken outside a studio. only in that sense would I consider myself a street photographer. What is amazing about the great traditional street photographers, including, of course, Julia, is how they can tease out a singular and profound moment from scenes of crowds, chaos, and commotion. I do not have that skill set or mindset. I look for and need the more quiet moments from what Tolkien called the middle distance. The images selected for this competition and this presentation are the lucky results of other projects and travels over many years. Parenthetically, I think I have images from 2000 to 2021 in this presentation. My beginnings in photography were as a location scout and manager for feature films. That was from 1975 to 1990. And 10 knee surgeries that kind of defined me, and that until recently rendered walking very far extremely difficult. I'm really good now, but it really limited. I could never walk around streets for 10 miles to shoot on the street the way some of the presenters that I've seen today have done. For both these reasons, most of my photo subjects were found using a car and shot pretty close to it. My hope is that my background will encourage others, challenge in some way, to still get out and explore with or without a camera as the world hopefully returns to some degree of normalcy. So my idea would be to go through these pictures relatively quickly, tell you where they shot, if there was an interesting story behind them, and then maybe take questions, and then maybe go through them again as the questions come up. This was shot in Eastbourne, England, which is not too far from Southampton, where the Titanic launched from on its fateful voyage. And this was a concert right on the kind of walk next to the ocean. And when you start on photography, you're kind of this is one from I think it's the earliest picture, maybe the second earliest in the group, and you're very drawn to patterns. And I was very drawn to this one for the patterns and what it said about the people and the light filtering through the beach chairs. Anyway, this is just a few years ago. This is in downtown LA on Broadway, where all the famous old theaters are. And this tableau of this woman, it looked like a painting to me. The light was incredible. Her pose was incredible. The dog, the instruments. The funny thing about this is the next frame, which I didn't include, she turned around and saw me she was on the second floor I was taking her picture, and she turned around and gave me the finger. I have that picture if anybody wants it. This is a picture in Sopot, Poland, right on the Baltic Sea. And as you can see, I stay away from kind of in-your-face pictures of people. I think the individuals, humans as individuals, are very small in the universe. And but their impact on the landscape is very big. And I kind of try to show that in my images. This one almost is black and white. It's a color photograph, but it just reflects the day. This is an earlier photograph, I think in 2003, just before I went digital. And this is kind of end of the season in Wildwood, New Jersey, on the boardwalk. And everyone's kind of gone. Everyone's back to school, and this guy is still running the batting cage. I love baseball. I still go to the batting cage once a week at age 72. And Wildwood, New Jersey is a time capsule. It's kind of amazing. It's like the 50s and 60s never left. If you want to shoot motels, and pools and people who dress like they're still in the 50s and 60s, this is the place. And I was doing a movie called The Village with M. Night Shyamalan. This was what I would do on my weekends off. This is in Quito, Ecuador. And I just love this little guy trying to be a man in this photograph. I love his pose. I love the colors against the background. And I'm not looking for moments, when people other street photographers walk down the street and they encounter something and they're snapping away. I'm really taking my time, and composition, subject matter is number one, composition is number two. And then if I get lucky with light, that's number three. This is in Marseille. a remarkable museum, the Museum of European Culture. It's called MUSEM, and uh, and it it's a remarkable museum because it has all these incredibly modern buildings, but also it incorporates the old fort of the city. And but I just love this composition. I just got lucky. I usually try not to have more than one person in my photographs. This is in obviously St. Mark's Square in Venice. And, you know, it's not easy to get a picture like this with hardly anybody in it, one person in it. Um, but it was from the bell tower on the square. This is in Mutianyu, China. The Great Wall, obviously, it's not the Great Wall entrance near Beijing. It's a few hours away, so it's less populated and less touristy. The funny thing is that before I took this picture, I wasn't expecting snow. I was there scouting locations for a film, and I just had like boat shoes on, and I took one step in the snow, and I just slid all the way down on my backside, and I kind of ended up where this woman is. This is in Scotlandville, Louisiana, and this starts a sequence of a few images on religion, which I might tell you, you know, my thoughts on the subject. This is in La Mirada, California. It's a city within the county of LA. It's part of a project, a long-term project I did called 88, the Tribal Cities of LA County, where I went to all 88 cities in the county, took one picture that I thought was representative of that city, and tried to make a connection between, you know, almost like the Baltics or the uh, places in the world where people are they move according to their religion or their culture. And that's what's happening around the county of Los Angeles. People, as gentrification takes place in the city, people move out to a city out in the county, and it becomes Hispanic, it becomes Asian, it becomes Black, it becomes white. And it's kind of sad, but interesting at the same time. And I did a book about it. This is another project, a long-term project called Closed on Sundays, and this is on Van Nuys Boulevard. And I just love this picture. It's obviously of the Hispanic culture, but the colors and um, just spoke to me. And also, I'm a big believer in the rule of thirds until I break it. And you'll see that in a lot of my photographs, and this is a good example. This is in Benwood, West Virginia, and this is another long-term project I did on the Ohio River. And, you know, there's been a lot of projects on the Mississippi River, including the famous one from Alex Hoth. But to me, I can't compete with him, but I think the Ohio River is a much more interesting river because it had so much to do with the Industrial Revolution and how the country grew. And the river goes, unlike the Mississippi, from north to south, it goes east to west. And that is very unique. So it goes through 5 or 6 very different cultures within the United States. Then you can almost hear the accents changing as you go along the river. And luckily, because of its history, there are farm to market roads on both sides of the river. So you can, you know, I went through to every town, hundreds of them, from where it begins in Pittsburgh and ends in the Mississippi, meets the Mississippi. And it took me 6 months of trips, and then I did a book on that as well. This is just a picture in Sherman Oaks, California. And the irony here is Sherman Oaks is very white. And these kids I just caught them at the right moment in these little squares. And again, the formality of my street photography is evident here in the rule of thirds. There's a little vignette or tableau going on in each of these little windows, very different from each other. And I just still get a kick out of it. It's a Redondo Beach. I don't know if I said that. This is in Huntington Park. These shots are part of that 88 series that I did of each city in the county. Because most people have only been, if they probably count, they've probably been to maybe 20 of the 88 cities in their county. So I was determined to go see every one of the 88 and how they've developed and what they're like now. This is in Covina, another city in LA. I tried to, in trying to edit this presentation, I tried to make it a third of LA, a third of states in the United States, and a third of foreign locations. And I just got lucky with this shot. You know, what a coincidence. This guy'd be sitting there next to the picture of the founder of this city, and he looks exactly alike. This is in Burbank at Bob's Big Boy. They have the car scene every once a week or once a month. And it's not only young people who are on their cell phones. This is in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, one of those towns that's been completely hollowed out by the economy, as were a lot of the towns along the Ohio River. And this guy is kind of the unofficial mayor of this very American town. But you know, between the Walmarts and the Kmarts and the loss of jobs, you know, a perfect, beautiful downtown with nothing open, pretty much. This is in 8 Ben Haddou in Morocco. And I just like, you know, I climbed pretty high to get this shot. And I just like the composition and the colors.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So you've obviously gotten to shoot all around the world, not only all around the United States, but all around the world. Do you find that people react differently to you shooting in other countries or other places, or do you find a kind of a common reaction no matter where you go?
It's a common reaction because there's no reaction, because unlike the presenters before me who are using a 28 or 35 millimeter lens and getting right up and close to people, I'm walking around. I have 2 cameras that I use, a Sony full frame with a 24 to 240, and I also carry a Sony point and shoot, probably the best point and shoot you can get for quality. It's a Sony RX 100 Mark VI, which has a 1-inch sensor, but also has a 24 to 200 lens. So I'm looking for composition, and I'm not looking for the faces of people. I'm not really getting in their faces and interacting with them very much. I'm more interested in how the humans are placed in their environment, how humans have affected their environment. I rarely shoot just straight landscape shots, straight nature shots. This interaction, intersection, to me is more interesting. The guy on the slide a couple before, in that the mayor of that town, one of the only times I got close enough to have to ask permission. This is in Palos Verdes Estates. I just think it's hilarious, and part of that 88 project. This is at the Budapest Opera House. This is you know, unusual for me that I show a crowd of people, but I was just it's kind of psychedelic to me. It's the old viewport of Marseille, and the ceiling of the area where everybody meets and takes public transportation that has like a mylar ceiling. So everybody's kind of upside down except the buildings that are right side up, and I just love the composition. And this I co-ran a company that did photo tours of the LA River for 5 years, from 2008 to 2013. And this is one of the images from that work. And this is right south of the Olympic Bridge, and allegedly was a homeless camp broken up by police. These are probably around 2008. This is not a pandemic photograph, but it certainly could be. I just love this guy's not kidding around. He's, the pit bull with AIDS sign and the dog there and all the no parking signs. This is in Holyoke, Massachusetts. This, once in a while, you just come upon a composition that, there's no way I could dress this set any better than it is. I just thought it's just so beautiful. The composition, the colors, the pieces of the environment that are in the photograph. I do think my wife moved that stick a little bit to help me out with the Chinese character, but other than that, it was untouched. This is in Sun Valley here in LA. And the funny thing about this is when I first took a picture of this, it was the hand on the left. And then I'd come back and then there'd be a hand on the right. It's a prop shop, I think, for the movie business. And every time I'd come back, it had changed. Like a hand got added and then they added blood to the hand. And I just enjoyed the photograph. This was, I did a study of the Palos area of Washington and Oregon and Idaho. And this is not quite in the Palos area, but I loved the image and how it just screamed of Old West and nostalgia and abandonment. And I love the way his belt line matched the mountains behind them. I love a road trip where I discover I'm going 60 miles an hour and I discover something like this and I think, stop and turn around and find, spend a half hour at a place like this. It's just a joy. This is in Finlandia, Colombia. And, the interesting thing about this juxtaposition is that they are very conservative Catholic there, but they're not prudes. So I loved this display of painting, which includes nudes, right outside the main church in the square. And the colors are amazing, obviously. And the knockoffs of Botero also are kind of funny. This is in Santee Alley in downtown LA in the fashion district. I just enjoyed the Help Wanted sign and the graphicness of the stockings and the colors of the panties. It was just great. This is how the people, this is in Cudahy, California. It's a very poor part of the city, this county. And how the people that ran this factory didn't see the irony of this sign is just beyond me. It's very sad.
Mark, Carl would like to know if you ever crop your images.
Yes, I mean, I don't crop a lot. I don't do a lot of manipulation. I just try to shoot a little bit wider than I'm going to need in editing, and then just try and establish what I saw when I was there with software. I used mainly Lightroom. And to just end on a funny note, this was one picture from my pandemic project. I could not find something. I didn't want to take pictures of empty streets and people in masks and all that sort of thing. So I tried to find a place that I could commute to in LA that was like the pandemic never existed. And I found a place 40 miles due north of LA, between the west of Lancaster and east of the 5 freeway. It's just kind of desert, small towns in the desert. So I created a community and I called it Lancaster West. And I just kind of roamed around and took pictures of what people might be looking for post-pandemic as they start leaving the big cities and looking for a safe place to go. All these projects that I've talked about are on my website. I'll go back to that page. So anyway, when you go to my website, I'm very prolific and I'm a lousy editor. So there's too much stuff there, but there's a lot of interesting projects that I worked on over the years. I've done 3 books. Actually, when I stop sharing, are there any other questions? No?
Anybody have any more questions for Mark?
I'm getting out just on time. That's good.
Yeah.
So this is one book I've done. Is it backwards?
No, we're good.
That's on the my Ohio River project. And this is my book on the 88 cities of LA County. And this is my book on the LA River. And they're all on my website. They're very cheap. But if anybody wants to send me an email, I'll be glad to send them a PDF of any book that they want to look at for nothing, no problem. And again, I want to thank all the people that came, and I want to thank you and Julie and the staff of LACP. You've been wonderful to me over the years, and I'm just excited to win this award. And again, thank you.